Hello everyone, today I wanted to share with you a lecture by someone named Neville Goddard. Now, these lectures took place decades ago, in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, so it's quite some time ago. Some of us weren't even born when these were taking place. But I figured it would be interesting to share these lectures and give my commentary with them as we go through them, because they contain very fascinating information, I've always thought, concerning our own potential and our own consciousness and the power that we actually hold. So today I wanted to start with this first lecture. It's called All Things Exist. That is the title. According to this document, it was recorded or given somewhere in May 1968. And it started out with a quote by William Blake. All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Now let's go over the text. Neville said, "The world of imagination is infinite and eternal, whereas the world of generation is finite and temporary. In that eternal world, the permanent realities of everything exist. Their reflections are here, cast in a glass called nature." Now he quoted another saying by William Blake. "The oak is cut down by the axe, and the lamb falls by the knife, but their eternal forms exist forever, and are renewed by the seed of contemplative thought. The permanent realities of an extinct bird, animal or fish live. They can be resurrected and externalized by the seed of your contemplative thought, for everything lives within you. This world of generation, I call the world of Kaiser or Caesar, should not be neglected, as it is an important aspect of our reality, even though it is only a shadow. Scripture urges us to revise, to forgive and change our thoughts, thereby changing the conditions of our life. This is how it is done." A friend recently wrote saying, 3 weeks ago, a friend called saying he was afraid he was going to be fired. I instantly revised his call, hearing his voice bubbling with excitement. He told me how he had been praised for his work, and I felt the thrill of rejoicing with him. Today he came to my office and said the very words I heard in my imagination. This morning, while dressing, I was thinking about an ad I was working on which carried the name of a very prominent man in San Francisco. As I ran the ad through my mind, I said to myself, I want to put the word Mr. before his name. I did it, and it felt right. I made a mental note to do it when I arrived at the office, and promptly dropped the thought. That afternoon, the man called, asking that I insert Mr. before his name. Not in the ad, but in a radio commercial where his name was used. Then my friend added this thought. I stand in awe at the operation of this law. You asked about the little pig I saw. He was small but fat, and the way I'm stuffing him today, in no time at all he will be so large he will fill this room. For those who are not familiar with the symbol, the pig is the symbol of Christ, the power and wisdom of God. Every time you exercise your imagination lovingly on behalf of another or yourself, you are feeding Jesus Christ. My friend is stuffing his pig, because every moment of time he is alert and putting this law into practice. Now a lady wrote saying, I found myself looking at an enormous building at the edge of a vast body of water where your classes were held. A man at my side asked, how do students get to these classes? Pointing to another student who was walking on the water towards her destination, I answered, that's how it is done. Unwilling to accept my answer, the man said, but how do you do it? And I confessed, I have placed stones just below the water. Then the scene changed and I am with a friend who said, I'm pregnant. Shocked because I knew she had no husband, I asked, by whom? And before she could answer, I awoke. 3 nights later, I found myself in a very large building containing a theater, where you were the one actor who was playing every part. As you assumed the role of the blind man, I realized there was no one to lead you, so I ran to help. As we walked, we came upon a young boy sound asleep. Then you said, I told him to meditate and he has fallen asleep again. The scene changed and I'm viewing paper decorations hanging above a door. I reached up to pull them down when an enormous wind caught me and I felt as though I was born in the arms of a very strong man and awoke saying, I love thee, O Lord. This marvelous series of dreams revealed much. This lady admitted crossing the water while walking on a solid foundation. Now the Bible is a parable from beginning to end, and water is the symbol of its psychological truth. The literal interpretation of a parable is solid as a rock. When the meaning behind the parable is discovered, the stone is rolled away and the water found. However, if a little solid reality in this world is desired while playing with this psychological truth, it becomes stepping stones below the water. Loving what is heard is not enough. One must be willing to go all out and walk on the water. Instead, feeling she must be practical as she was living in a world of reality where rent must be paid, food bought and clothes purchased, she is unable to walk by faith at the present time. Let me give you a definition that came to me concerning the word faith. Faith is the subjective appropriation of an objective hope. When my friend revised the first telephone conversation, he subjectively appropriated what he hoped would objectify for his friend. He remained faithful to his imaginal act and confirmation came. Now let me take it back for a moment here and go away from Neville's text. I want to tell you something here, and that is also based on what he said in this lecture, because at the very end of it, this is what he said. Start now to look upon the great mystery of creation as the subjective appropriation of your objective hope. Dwell upon my words, he said. Put them into practice, and you will experience their fulfillment, for all things exist within you. Now that is a very profound statement to make, saying that all things exist within you and me. Now most people at first glance, they might not quite grasp what is meant by that statement. All things exist within me? Well, if you look from it purely on a physical point of view, you might not see that all things exist within you. If you were to open your body, well, you won't find everything in there. But what he's talking about is inside of your own consciousness. Now that's also what I try to speak through my own lectures at times, is that fact that when you go to sleep at night, 90%, if not more, of our population, including ourselves, a lot of the times, are not aware that we're dreaming. But it's in that dream state that you can actually discover that all things exist within you. Where did they exist? Well, they exist within your consciousness. And we have to raise our own consciousness up to the level of the thing that we desire to have or be in life. Because life doesn't end when you die. Life is everlasting. That's also what he talked about. And you can only grasp that if you know how to move within your own consciousness and realize there's more to you than meets the physical eyes. Now that's something that he always stressed throughout his own lectures, but a lot of people, I think, do get kind of stuck there because this physical world does have a very strong grasp over our minds, making it at times very difficult to have this sort of trust in ourselves, where we know that it's up to our own selves, our own imagination, our own consciousness to make something happen. You know, it takes enormous trust to believe that and to follow that and to not be misled by either the doubts or worries from other people around you or from what the physical world is trying to tell you from your current point of view, where you might not be in the most beneficial spot in order to achieve or do something that you want to do. But you can still do it inside your own consciousness, and that's what we want to burn into our minds, is that we have to go inside of ourselves and not go outside of ourselves in the hopes of finding a way to solve a problem. Yes, help can come from without, but we have to make up our minds from within that we're going to figure out how to solve it. And if we don't do that, which many of us sadly don't at first, well, that is what makes this teaching pretty difficult at times, even though when people do find it fascinating. This is something I've seen online with many other people, that they do talk about in the comment sections where others share these lectures, and that they might be kind of stuck because they try to grasp how to feel the wish fulfilled, for example, how to appropriate their desires subjectively. Well, this is how you do it. You do it by learning to go inwardly. You do it by closing your eyes and literally, again, just let yourself feel what it would be like if you already lived the sort of life that you want to live, if you already had achieved what you want to do. It's a very simple thing to do, but because it's so bizarre at first glance, perhaps, most don't do it. That's the sad part. But you can do it. I tried this years ago, and afterwards I realized this works. And I kept working with it in my own way ever since. Now let's go back to another part of Neville's lecture. Now this is not the entire lecture. I only go over certain paragraphs, actually, because that's more beneficial, I think. in order to get the most powerful parts out of them and try to impress them again on the viewers' minds. Now, in this lecture, he also talked about a woman who had a vision, and this is what she said. Startled, I raised myself off the pillow to see you standing in mid-air, dressed in a grey suit. You smiled, raised your arms and removed the ice from your head. Then you came over and calling me brother. You pressed them into my eyes. Bending your head, I watched it grow transparent and enormous in size. Then I saw that every living thing in the universe was there. You straightened up, and as you did, your head returned to its normal size. Again, raising your right hand, you took off the top of your head and handed it to me, where I saw the greenest of green grass growing there, and you vanished. Now he goes on to say in response to that, yes, I called this lady brother advisedly, for regardless of the gender we have here, we are immortal brothers, all of us. So I say, go unto my brothers and say to them, I have ascended unto my God and your God, until my Father and your Father. Now it's clear that Neville uses a lot of Christian terminologies, and this is also another thing that I don't personally mind it, but I'm aware that some people, for whatever reason, they might have some issue with that. Maybe they weren't raised in that religion, and therefore they find it more difficult to just accept the words. It's kind of sad that it does happen, but I'm aware that it does happen, and still, for these people, what he's talking about can still work and be very powerful, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is developing our own consciousness beyond what we're normally just using it as. We normally use the conscious mind only to live in a reactionary mode, but we want to turn it into a creative power, the real creative power that it is. And we can only do it if we study wisdom, if we can listen to people who actually have experience from working within their own selves, with their own inner being, with their own imaginary self. Now he went on to say the word in current means giving passage to a current that flows inward. This lady is now so conditioned that I can reveal all things to her, so that she can know the truth of the statement. All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. She saw that every living thing was contained in my immortal head. Destroy the garment I now wear or anything in my world, and I will reproduce it again, for my immortal head cannot be destroyed. So start now to practice, as he said, what the Bible calls repentance, which is a radical change of attitude, no matter what it is. If it does not conform to your ideal, change it by subjectively appropriating your goal. Remain faithful to it, and no earthly power can keep you from attaining it. Now I can say that this is true, but it's maybe not true in the same way you hope it to be true. Because we all have our own desires, and then we try to filter those desires and wonder, well, did he or she do this, really? Because I don't see them do it. So it must not be true, we think. Somewhere people can reason that. What we have to understand is we shouldn't look at what other people are doing. We just simply take texts like these and really work with them on our own goals. So as he said, no matter what it is, no matter what you want, if it does not conform to your ideal, this current reality that is, well then change it by subjectively appropriating your goal. Again, this means on a subjective level, on an inner, mental and emotional level. You want to become aware of what you really want in as much details as you actually can. You don't have to stress over it though, but you do want to be very clear on where you want to go in life, and then, as he said, you remain faithful to it. And then no earthly power can keep you from attaining it. Why? Because your consciousness always grows towards the very thing that you focus it upon. I already said this in one of my own lectures before, and this is another confirmation from somebody else, that this is what will happen. But again, you have to go beyond your earthly identity, because no power on earth can keep you from attaining it, right? Well, you might think, well, what if I die? Then a power on earth stops me from attaining it. That's the first reasoning people can have. But your life is eternal. What happens? Well, the same thing that happens if you fall asleep at night. You might as well be dead to your physical self. And that is what death ultimately is. It's nothing else than moving into form, out of form through dimensions. That is why no earthly power can ever stop you from attaining your goals, because even if you were to die, for example, if your mind is still focused upon this ideal that you seek to embody and to realize, then you will find a way to make it happen. How it happens, I cannot tell you. Even Neville would say he cannot really tell you how it happens, but this is just a spiritual law that will work favors for us all if we learn to apply it willfully and with wisdom. That is all I had to say for now on this lecture of his, All Things Exist. I will be doing more of those and hopefully perfect it a little bit, because this was a first test where I was like, I've studied his material for almost, 7 years. And in those 7 years, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences within my own mind because of it, but also my awareness has grown probably quite a bit. I haven't really measured it, but then I noticed that a lot of people, when I do share this material with them, they would tell me like they find it fascinating but also very difficult. Part of the difficulty for some, again, is that he uses a lot of Christian terminologies that, again, for some reason some might have trouble with it. But then other people also find it very almost surreal how he talks about imagination, and that is one of my goals with these lectures from now on, is to help people better understand his material as well, so that way people can also hear that there's others out there that talked about very similar things about our consciousness as I am in this day and age doing myself. So with that being said, thanks for listening, hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next video.